Hello, today I'm answering all your questions about my facelift. 2 months ago, you left me some amazing questions and some wonderful comments on my announcement video. Now it's time to sit down and get those questions answered. I'm also going to be doing a live, and that will be on Monday, April 28th around 1 p.m. And if you have follow-up questions, that's where you can ask me follow-up questions, or if I didn't quite answer the question that you had, feel free to jump on the live on Monday. I'm just going to go down the 4 pages of questions that I got. I kind of grouped them together. So if you don't get your question answered, definitely leave me a comment or join me on the live. My name is Cindy. I am 59 years old. That was one of the big questions that I got. I'm 59. I've been here on YouTube for a little over 4 years now. I initially started out on YouTube to share my experience with a erbium YAG ablative laser treatment that I got, to answer your questions about that in-office treatment. And now I'm here to tell you about my facelift. And what exactly did I have done? The vertical restore that Dr. Amir Karim does is a vertically vectored facelift. It goes back and up. It's kind of like, I describe it kind of in like a J pattern. It's not all the way lateral, which those really aren't done anymore, and it's not completely vertical. It's kind of in a diagonal and upward vector. And I had the vertical restore facelift, which includes the lower face and neck, the mid face, also a lateral brow lift. I also had a fat transfer, and I opted in for the upper and lower bleph. Another question you asked me is who decided what procedures I was going to get done. I decided in the end what I wanted to have done and what I didn't want to have done. Dr. Karim just gave me his recommendations on what would bring the most natural outcome. A lot of you have asked me, why didn't I get a lip lift? That was not recommended. Apparently with my anatomy, the distance between the bottom of my nose and the top of my lip wasn't as elongated as it could have been to require a lip lift. So I did have a fat transfer, and the fat transfer went in my lower face, in my mid face up near the cheeks, around my entire eye area, and in my lips. So a little bit of fat transfer was enough for me to get a more rejuvenated look to my lips. And I have to tell you, one of the things that I was afraid of the most was getting a lip lift. If he had recommended it, I'm not sure I would have gone through with it. That's just my own personal fear. I've seen some that have been done beautifully, but it was just the one thing that I was like, I just really don't think I want to do that. So it wasn't recommended, and I didn't have to do it or make that decision. A lot of you wanted to know about the pain and the numbness after surgery. That's a really good question. I am pretty much a wimp when it comes to pain, but I felt very comfortable about the amount of pain level that I would experience because, number one, I had seen a lot of post-op patients talk about it and how it really wasn't that bad. So if they say it really wasn't that bad, that means to me it was going to be uncomfortable. But honestly, that I was given pain medications and I did opt in to take them. That was my personal decision. It wasn't necessarily recommended. A lot of people just take Tylenol. I needed a little bit more, so I took the pain medication. I think I took it for about a week and a half. But when I took my pain medication and I stuck to that schedule, then I transitioned off Tylenol, I really did not experience a lot of pain, except, and this was a huge exception for me, behind my ears. Now you guys know I wear glasses, occasionally put in contacts, but because I had the upper and lower eye surgery, I could not wear contacts. So they said, just bring an old pair of glasses, break off the handles, or get some cheapies and break off the handles, and that'll be fine. But I couldn't function that way. They just kept falling off, and I just couldn't make it work. So for me personally, the amount of ear pain and pain around the ears, exacerbated by the fact that I did have to wear glasses, sometimes I would just kind of hold them up, that was the most painful / annoying things. And if you've been on my channel for a while, you also know that I get migraines. So my migraines were exacerbated. I probably had a tension headache / migraine for 30 days. and I am fortunate enough to live in a time of modern medicine. I am able to maintain my migraines to the point where they don't debilitate me for the whole day. I was the type of person that got them and ended up in the hospital, and I would be out for the count on the bathroom floor, couldn't care for my children. So they were really severe. So I really appreciate the fact that technology and modern medicine and modern pharmacology has allowed me to function with the fact that I have migraines. But that was my huge pain exacerbating factor. If you get headaches and migraines, the pain behind my ears was really terrible and probably the most uncomfortable portion of the entire experience for me. So as far as pain level, right after surgery, it wasn't too bad as long as I stayed on my pain medications, except for those headaches. And so as long as I stayed on my mitigating headache medications, I was fine and I wasn't in that much discomfort. Yes, you do have to sleep vertically. A lot of people have some issues with that. I slept vertically for an extended amount of time. I just slept propped up on pillows. I had this kind of a slant pillow that I used, and I just slept vertically. Even when I got home, I didn't take those home with me because they were super bulky. I just built myself up a little vertical pillow stack, and I slept vertical, I would say, for almost 8 weeks post-surgery. Now, you don't have to do that, but it really helped keep that swelling down. All right, the next question, kind of related to pain, was numbness. Yes, you are going to be numb. And the hugest shock to me is that my entire scalp was numb. I was like, what is going on? I did not expect that at all. Like literally my entire scalp, maybe not right back in the very back, by your occiput, but my entire scalp was numb. And of course I expected my face to be numb. So it was numb from the incision, probably from behind the ears originally, all the way up to my nose. I think the tip of my nose wasn't numb. It was numb and it feels weird. Around month 2, it started slowly receding. So slowly receding from the center and back, and as well as my scalp numbness. It slowly just started to recede. And right now, I would say there's only like a little portion of my scalp that's still numb, but it is a weird sensation. I know some people who have said they just don't like the feel of their numb face. It just feels like not themselves. And that is the experience. It is a very strange experience. As someone I was reading about who had a facelift down in the comments of my original video, she said, it's kind of an out of this world experience. It's very out of body, just kind of mind blowing. And I would say that first month is. I don't think people recognize that this is a major surgery. I felt like I was prepared for a major surgery, but it was a little bit more in depth than I anticipated as well. It is a major surgery and you have to prepare for it and you have to be ready afterward to have things that are changing and evolving and not the same. It is a process. As I've always said in my follow-up little kind of mini check-ins, it is definitely a process. So back to numbness. So it slowly started to recede for me about 2 months, and it would just slowly boop, 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 boop. And now it's just right in this area, kind of just forward of the incisions, and in my under eye area, it extends a little bit further because of that lateral brow lift that he did. On to the next question. How long did the surgery last? The surgery was about 5.5 hours, which I was really surprised. I thought it was going to be like maybe 3 hours, but it was 5.5 hours. So a good half day. He does 2 surgeries a day. So that's about, a nice long 10 to 12 hour day. But it was 5.5 hours. And I assume some surgeries are longer, some surgeries are shorter, but mine was 5.5 hours. And a lot of you have asked about the twilight sedation and what it felt like and what I experienced, and was that a huge fear of mine? Honestly, because I've had twilight sedation before. I had it when I had my colonoscopy, of course, and I've actually had general anesthetic when I had my thyroid surgery. So for me personally, because I've had experiences with both twilight sedation and with general anesthesia, I just wasn't afraid of it. I did choose my surgeon based on the fact that I would have twilight sedation versus general anesthesia just to improve the recovery and not have to go through general anesthesia, because they obviously can have more complications. So that was one of my criteria for choosing Dr. Karam, that he actually didn't do general anesthetic, but that's a personal choice. A lot of you wanted to know what it was like. So basically I went in, I got an IV, they gave me some fluids. Then when I walked into the operating room, I sat up on the operating table, and they gave me the twilight sedation, and kind of by the time I laid back, I was out. And I don't recall much of anything. Apparently I was able to talk to them at the very beginning and able to answer a couple questions, but I personally don't remember a thing except waking up after recovery in my wheelchair. I don't even remember getting down off the table after surgery. I just woke up in my wheelchair and I was like, wow, how long did that take? I think was my very first question. How long is the surgery? And, how many minutes out of surgery am I? And they're like, oh, you're about 20 minutes out of surgery. And that's when I took that one picture that's actually on the thumbnail of this video. And that was like 20 minutes after surgery. And I thought I'd been like, maybe it had been at least an hour, a couple hours after surgery, and I was in the recovery, and etc. So it was a very comfortable process. I didn't experience any negative response to the twilight sedation. Another question is, did you have any complications after surgery? I did not. I only felt that my complication was the surprise numbness along my head, but that was not a complication. I just didn't know or expect that that would happen, because my scalp was completely numb, which is just so weird, brushing your hair, etc. And the other complication, I would call it a minor complication, is on my left eye. I have, where I had the upper bleph, I do have a little residual scar area, or a little scar formation, or I'm going to call it a bump. But every week it's looking smaller and smaller and smaller, and they're just like, let's wait this out. And that's really the answer that you're going to get for most, 90% of your questions after you have a facelift surgery, is like, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. Of course, there are those more drastic complications, but I didn't have any of those. I didn't have any hematomas. I didn't have any residual cognitive issues as a result of the twilight sedation or anything like that. Really no complications, except a little bump above my eye, which is slowly going away. I had some milia above my right eye, and they've actually already fallen off, and I didn't have to have them excised or taken off. So I wouldn't even consider those complications, just part of the process. Another question about surgery is, I saw that you had compression sutures around your jawline. Did you have drains? It doesn't look like you have drains. I did not have drains. They told me before I went in that I was a possibility that I would have drains. I guess that's a possibility for everybody that goes into surgery. And Dr. Karam determines during surgery, depending on how much neck work he does or how invasive it is or how much bleeding I'm doing, whether to put drains in or not. And I did not need drains. So that's why I don't have any drain scars, and that's why you didn't see any drains in the post-op procedure. But they're fairly common, and I knew that I could have a possibility of coming out of surgery with drains. And that wasn't a concern of mine. I had had surgical drains before when I had my thyroid surgery, so I was kind of aware of what that would be like. Another question is, where did you stay after surgery, and how long did you stay? We kind of decided to turn it into a vacation. I chose a private Airbnb to stay in. My husband joined me after he could get there for work. I did hire a private nurse because he couldn't be there those first couple days right after surgery. So I hired one of the nurses that the office recommended. Her name is Diana, and she is the most wonderful person. She's the best post-surgical friend, BFF, that I didn't know I needed. I was like, I've worked in an acute care hospital before. I'll be fine, No, I was really glad to have her. And my husband could have taken that over too. I know several of you who've talked to me about having your surgeries, and either a good friend or a husband is with you, and that's fine. But someone really does need to be with you those first couple days. And I just happened to hire a nurse, and we happened to get an Airbnb and kind of make a vacation of it. And a vacation that was a very restful vacation. Lots of reading, relaxing, sleeping, nothing, no walking the beach, no climbing around or doing anything. And so my husband and I just spent some quality time together, relaxing and taking a break from life while I recovered. So that was kind of our experience on the aftercare. I believe Dr. Karam does have a place, a retreat where you can stay, but my nurse actually recommended staying in an Airbnb. She thought it was just as nice as the suites that they offer. But I did not stay in the hospital, and I did not go straight home. I did stay in town, and we did an extended stay and just enjoyed ourselves. Another big question is, I thought your facelift included a brow lift. And as I explained, it did include a lateral brow lift, but it didn't include what's really popular these days called an endoscopic brow lift. So I did not have a brow lift, and I have not had Botox in like 8 months now. So my brow furrows are out of control. And of course, when I first had the surgery done, there was lots of swelling. So my upper brow was really pushing and exacerbating my frowny lines. But I just have not gotten around to getting Botox. And that's why I have these static lines. They were developed by 47. I had static lines. My husband always accuses me of, you always giving faces. I am always talking with my face. And that's kind of a genetic thing. You know, I just have furrows. My brow furrows above my brow area are much deeper than my 11s, and I just haven't had Botox yet. I plan to do Botox and kind of keep those smoothed out, but he doesn't do, back to the endoscopic brow lift, he does not do an endoscopic brow lift because his belief is that that is a bit of a trend and that it isn't the way the face naturally ages. So as we age, we get bone loss, we get fat pad absorption and dissension, and we kind of have this hollowing. And of course, as a result, the fabric of our skin starts to sag downward. His goal is to restore that natural lift. And I was not born with a natural, like, pulled up brow lift. And that would not help the natural aging of my face. When he does a facelift, he wants to put you into the natural form that your face would have been maybe 10 years ago, fill it up because of the volume loss due to the bone reabsorption and the fat pad dissension, kind of give you that more youthful look. But he does not do an endoscopic brow lift. Like I said, number one, it's a bit of a trend. And number two, it doesn't result in the natural look that Dr. Karam is after. So I will be doing Botox probably forever, but I'm comfortable that with my brow lines. I don't want that kind of surprised look. I had several questions about how long this facelift will last or should last. The average lifespan of a deep plane facelift is 10 to 15 years, but honestly, I view it as a permanent change. I will not look at 80 the way I would have looked if I hadn't gotten a facelift. Will I continue to age? Of course. I will continue to have bone reabsorption. I will continue to be bombarded by pollution and UV rays and the environment and my choices in nutrition. So everything will contribute to the aging process, but I never will look exactly the way I would have looked at 80, 90, 100, hopefully, as I would have looked without facelift. So I consider it a permanent change, but of course I will still continue to age. So it's kind of depends on the way you look at it, because a lot of people are like, well, it's only going to last 10 or 15 years. You know, you're going to have to do another one and another one and another one. Actually, I don't think that's the case. I think that, and maybe when I'm 80, I'll be completely pleased with the aging that my skin has done and the reset that I've gotten. So I plan to take care of my skin. I plan to stay out of the sun, and I plan to really protect this facelift and the work that was done. So for me, I feel like this is a one and done permanent change. For others, I have read in the comments of my original video that they felt like they needed another touch up around 10 to 12 years. But I think that's such a personal, individual choice. For me right now, it feels like a permanent solution. Several of you asked, what was your biggest worry and your biggest fear? My biggest fear was coming out of surgery looking done. It was the reason that it honestly took me 2.5 years after I decided to get a facelift, or after I decided to do a consult with Dr. Karam, to actually go through with it. I did not want to look unnatural or done. I just needed to see more surgeries out there. I needed to see other surgeries out there, and I didn't commit to this till about 2.5 years after my initial consult, because my biggest fear was looking overdone or unnatural. Once I'd made my decision to have the surgery, my biggest fear was the scars. And I get that question a lot. What do your scars look like? How are they healing? No, comments like they're never going to go away. You're always going to have them. And I actually did an extra in-person consult, flew down only to talk to Dr. Karam about scars, because after the fact of not wanting to look unnatural, I was terrified of the scars. But I had to come to terms with, if I wanted to do this surgery, that I would have scars. There will never be a surgery that you don't have a scar that's undetectable. Will they be minimal? Will they be easy to hide? Will my scars be hardly noticeable except to anyone who's actually really looking? That was up to my particular healing, my particular anatomy, the way the incisions were placed. And I had to go in with knowing that risk. And after talking to Dr. Karam, I was completely reassured that by the end of this process, and the process is a year-long process, and ask anyone who's had a facelift, your healing takes up to a year for everything to really settle down. So I am going to reassess my scars in a year. There are things that can be done, but I may not need to have anything done. What I thought I would do is put a slideshow of my scar healing at the end of this video so you can see how they're evolving over time. And I'm only 3 months out. So they're going to be scars. You're going to see scars. And I also want to share with you what I'm doing to help my scar healing. I'm using a scar gel, and this is Silogen, I think is the name of it, Silogen. So when I had my thyroid scar, I used scar patches, but that's kind of impractical along the hairline. So I use a scar gel. You can get them with SPF in them. This one doesn't happen to have it, and I like this one best. It is just glides on. It really helps soften the look of my scars. I love it. It helps with healing. Also, I'm using LED and I'm using my panel because I don't want to put a mask on quite yet. And I'm using my Zip microcurrent device, but I'm using it on nanocurrent only mode. The interesting thing that happened to my scars, I would say at about 2 months, they started to get red. Maybe it's more like a month and a half, month and 3/4. They started to get very itchy, red, and inflamed. So I had a check-in with Dr. Karam, and he said if they get any worse, I would have to take an antibiotic. But for me, it was just part of the healing process. We did keep an eye on them for several weeks, but they got less red and less red and less red. There was no opening of any suture lines. There was no scabbing over or bleeding or anything like that. They just got red and kind of tender and warm. And then the next thing that happened with the scars is they started to get itchy. As my numbness receded, oh my gosh, the scar lines itch. And so it's really a challenge for me not to touch them. Even at 3.5 months, it's gotten a little better. I would say at beginning of the end of the 2nd month, beginning of 3rd month, ooh, they were itchy. And my scalp started to itch too because the numbness along my scalp area was receding. So I think it's just part of the healing process. They didn't look worse or anything, but they have definitely been itchy lately. So that I didn't expect and was kind of a surprise. So I do expect to have scars. I do expect that they will heal to virtually nothing. I had seen my local dermatologist recently, and she's like, the way that these were closed, you are not going to notice these. She is convinced that they will be barely detectable. But I know for myself, I usually heal with kind of pinkness that lasts forever. I bumped my foot at the pool the other day, and the pinkness that I have on that one little bump has lasted forever. So I do tend to hyperpigment after an injury, and I know that. So I was expecting that, but I'm also expecting it to be very minimal, and I'm expecting, if it isn't quite what I expect at the year mark, that there are things that I can do. There are laser treatments that you can do. There's microneedling that you can do to break up the scar tissue. And if you haven't seen my video recently, I am doing a little bit of cosmetic microneedling along that area to help with hair growth along that area. And it is, so it's really exciting. So that's kind of the scope on my scars. I will leave a slideshow at the end of this video on how they're healing and what they're looking like. But yeah, there have been some interesting transitions in the way they feel. Also, as far as the receding of the numbness, you'll get these zinger feelings, like these pops and zing feelings. It's a very strange sensation. and along with the itching has been kind of a weird sensation. Just every once in a while you'll feel one of those nerves regenerating and you're like, whoa. The next question is about how I went about choosing a surgeon, which is great. You need to make your list of criteria on what you want to see in a surgeon and do your homework. Like I say about any in-office procedure, and especially a surgery and a permanent change to you physically, you need to do your homework. You asked how many people did I interview? It's a different question, how many people did I interview versus how many people did I consider? I considered 3 surgeons, but none of them ticked all the boxes like Dr. Karam did. So he was the final surgeon of my choice, and he was the one that I've had multiple interviews with, kind of sit downs with. I didn't have any physical one-on-ones with any other surgeons because I didn't get through my criteria process before they were kind of out of the running. And what was my criteria? Number 1, I wanted a surgeon that had done this for years. Number 2, I didn't want a surgeon that had done this for too many years, if you know what I mean. I wanted someone that was at the peak of their career and had had hundreds, if not thousands, of surgeries behind them. I wanted someone who did this only. Like, this is the only thing that Dr. Karam does. I just wanted a surgeon that focused on facelifts, that was at the peak of their career, and that also did fat transfers. That was part of my criteria, and had a very good history with excellent fat transfers. You really need to choose someone that knows what they're doing. And the other reason is a little bit intangible, but I needed a surgeon that I could trust so much that I could put my life into their hands. And that sounds so dramatic, but when you're in surgery, you never know what's going to happen. I needed to know that no matter what happened, Dr. Karam could respond appropriately and I would be okay. 1000%, no questions asked. And I had to go in person to meet that person, to get to know them. I got to know him over a 2.5-year period, and his staff as well. I had to have 100% trust. And that is one reason I didn't have the fears that I think a lot of you are asking me about. I was not fearful because I had 100% trust, because it had taken me a long time to do my research. I knew this person was at the pinnacle of their game, and I knew I could trust them basically with my life. So I didn't have any fear of complications, and I knew if a complication came up that he would be able to handle it. So that was my criteria, and that was the way I chose Dr. Karam, and it really wasn't based on price. I decided if I found a surgeon that met all my criteria and I couldn't afford it, I just wouldn't do it. And that leads me to price. That is probably the biggest question that I got. He is very open about his pricing. You can go on his website, fill out his paperwork, get his pricing, and you will know his price as of today. 2.5 years ago, actually it's almost been 3 years now, when I was quoted my price, it was $75,000. And yes, I chose to do some add-ons. I have my upper blepharoplasty and my lower skin pinch, and of course the fat transfer. So those are extra. I don't actually think at this point in his career he will do a vertical restore without the fat transfer. So it is really pricey, north of 100K once you have to pay for your flights, etc. So his prices may be different now. There was a point in his career when he was a younger surgeon, his prices were $30,000, but you have to understand that you're paying for that expertise. And like I said, once I found the person that I could trust and I got their quote, if I couldn't afford it, then I wouldn't have done it. So one of you said it the best, you're like, she paid the price because he's the best and she had the money. And that is really the bottom line. I realize financially this is out of reach for most people. I do not take that lightly, and I am grateful that I had the funds to pay for the surgeon of my choice. But I am very cognizant of the fact that this is a very high price and that most people could not afford this price for a facelift. And if you look down in my original video and some of the comments, people have found surgeons that they are very happy with for a much lower price. Oh, and one of your questions about cost was, did I get a discount because I'm willing to share my vertical restore journey with Dr. Karam? Absolutely not. I paid full price. I had a lot of questions about nutrition, pre-op and post-op nutrition. What did you take for your supplementation during the healing process? What did you do nutritionally to get ready for surgery? And what are you doing post-op to maintain a healthy lifestyle and your nutrition? Now, I have always been a really great eater. I've gotten all my nutrition through my food. I eat a balanced diet. I love all foods. And so I've just always relied on my diet and the occasional multivitamin if I felt like I was deficient. And of course, I take a supplement, vitamin D with K. So that was the extent of my nutrition besides multivitamin and vitamin K before going in to prepare for this surgery. Dr. Kiram is serious about his nutrition for his personal life and his family and for his patients. So he has a huge list of things he wants you to take and a huge list of things he wants you to stay away from, because there are certain supplements or nutritional components of food, even like juices like ginger, that you should not take before going into surgery because they can complicate healing and interfere with the healing process. So there's a huge long list. I'll list what I can down below, but he gave me a supplement package along with bromelain and vitamin K. He gives you a chart that you have to follow on what to take, when to take. It starts about a month before surgery. And I just kept a chart and a log of all the nutritional supplements. I was not used to taking that many supplements, so I had to keep really careful track. And it's very precise and very exact on the days you start them, the days you end them. And then, of course, you take your antibiotics before surgery and after surgery. So there are a whole host of supplements and medications you need to take. So I just made a big chart and just stuck right to it because he's a stickler when it comes to nutrition for sure. But it jump-started me on a nutrition journey, and ironically, it's trickled down into my husband's interest in nutrition and supplements. So I will share with you what I took beforehand. It was just what he prescribed. It's called Vitameds or something like that. I will put a picture here of the supplement pack that he gives you, plus the bromelain, which is an enzyme from pineapple, which ironically I was craving a lot during my healing process, and vitamin K. And right after surgery, I went on an additional supplement that was recommended by my nurse. It's a powder supplement. I will put it up here and I will put a link to it down in the description. And I've been taking that up through the 3-month. I just finished my last bag of it, and I probably won't reorder it because I'm starting some additional supplements that my husband and I have been researching, and I won't get into that because it's so personal. What I'm realizing is that nutritional supplements are so personal to you. Like what I take isn't what my husband is taking, and I'm still taking an additional amount of protein every day. I've really bumped up my protein since this surgery, and I just feel like it's kind of awakened a whole new me that is on a better nutritional journey for life. I do have a particular shake that I like to make, so I'll put my smoothie recipe below, but it's super easy. Basically, it's a handful of spinach, fruit of your choice, then greens, collagen peptides, and then a little bit of sparkling water. And what I used to get even more protein is a couple scoops, about a cup worth of plain yogurt. Greek yogurt. So that's kind of my smoothie routine, and I love it. I've just gotten addicted. So even though I'm well past post-op and I'm not using the post-op supplement, I've gotten addicted to these smoothies. So it's just a great, nice, healthy snack to have. And I've just been really cognizant of what I'm putting in my body. And I'm excited to stay on this nutritional journey for life. Like I said, now my husband is getting interested in supplemental nutrition and what works and what doesn't. We're reading research papers and just kind of tweak what's going to work best for us throughout our life. Another question I got a lot of is, why didn't you include before and afters in your announcement video? Honestly, I was only like 3.5 weeks out from surgery, so I really didn't have any afters. I was still so swollen, but I will do a slideshow along with the slideshow of my scar progression of my before and afters at the end of this video. And I'll take you all the way from the day of surgery to, I guess I'll wash my face tonight and take some more pictures so you can see like the most up-to-date before and afters. For the last part of this Q&A, I want to touch on a topic that will answer a lot of your questions and address some comments. And it's kind of, what is the difference between skincare and a facelift? Skincare addresses the glow in your skin, the pigment in your skin, the texture of your skin, but it doesn't address the underlying structure of your skin. The sagging due to fat pad dissension, due to bone loss, and due to genetic factors, possibly too much exposure from the sun. So they're very different things, and they kind of are synergistic. A facelift will only take care of the structure of your face. It will reduce that sagging. It will give you a lift, but it will not deal with wrinkles, pigmentation, skin glow, texture. Those are all skincare issues. And you can either maintain those skincare issues at home if you have deeper lines, if you have deeper pigmentation, and if you have very dull skin, you can also go for in-office treatments and try prescription formulas. But those do not deal with the underlying structure. I was doing all of those things for 10 years, and I still had sagging skin that I personally wanted to address in a more dramatic way than any home skincare device was going to do. I still endorse skincare devices for very subtle changes. I love my microcurrent, I love my LED, and I know some of you have told me a little bit about the radio frequency devices that you've used across your brow, but those do not give the more soft, relaxed look that a touch of neurotoxin or Botox can do. So for me personally, I will continue to get my Botox treatments. I will continue to use my LED red light therapy for texture irregularities, for decreased redness and ruddiness to my skin, which is just what I get genetically, and to help with pigment and kind of that smoother tone. I will also continue to use my microcurrent for a little bit of lift to my upper brow area and maintain that little bit of lift that I get along the jawlines and the cheek. I just love microcurrent, and it's something I think gives enough of a subtle change that's worth using. I also will be continuing to do my skincare and research skincare and new skincare technologies for you. I am so excited about the future of skincare, all the new ingredients, all the new things that are being discovered, and I love testing those out for you. My goal is to maintain the results. If you get a facelift and don't maintain it, then you will age faster. There's just no doubt about it. One of my friends said it best, skincare is like the fabric on a couch. You would not put old fabric on a beautifully new restored couch. It's that synergy that makes your couch look great or your face look great. And I realized that a facelift is not for everyone. And like I said, if I had not found my perfect surgeon, I just wouldn't have done it. I was not unhappy with the way I looked. I was curious about if I could get a more defined look to my skin and a more lifted look to my skin that would still keep me natural. After getting back from surgery, I spent the rest of the day and night icing and resting. After breakfast, I went in for my post-op day 1 appointment with Dr. Karam. He said the surgery went really well, no complications, and everything is healing beautifully. I got my temple stitches taken out. I had my first shower, which felt fantastic. My lips are really swollen today, but that's what they said. During the 3rd, 4th, and 5th days, your lips start to get really swollen. Monday, I got my stitches out on my upper and lower bluff and the compression sutures here on the sides. They're going to get removed. Now, these compression sutures are put in to prevent hematomas. And so those will come out on Monday. So one more day till I get my next set of sutures out, and one step at a time, but feeling great. Today was the day that I got my upper and lower blepharoplasty stitches out and the compression sutures out under my chin area. I'm so much more comfortable. Just going to spend the day relaxing, eating well, and healing up. Stitches out. Feeling great. I just had my last appointment with Dr. Karam. I'm heading home day after tomorrow. I am feeling fabulous. and I hope today's question and answer video has answered all your questions. If it hasn't, join me on my live, which will be Monday, the 28th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm happy to answer anything you'd like to know. Thanks so much for watching and wishing you all a skintastic day.